Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Thursday evening. Joining us from TD Garden, where the Boston Celtics took apart the 76ers tonight in a game that looked like a good choice for national television last summer, but ended up just sort of going through the motions. Nobody goes through the motions like our guy, Tim Bontemps.
Be a lot more exciting in the building on Saturday night, fellas, when the streaking Lakers are in town.
That's right. He got there early to stake out. He's just going to camp out there in the TD Garden until Saturday night. ABC Celtics hosting the Lakers. Boy, is ABC and ESPN excited about that one. All right, joining us from Dallas, Texas, where he's back from being on the road for days, weeks on end, is Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Bontemps, you tell Luca I say howdy when he gets there in Boston. Maybe some harsh memories from last June, but certainly that's going to be one worth tuning in for.
Yeah, I think Luca, we'll see what happens tonight as the Lakers finish up this homestand. They're playing the Knicks as we're talking right now, but Luca might be in a good mood coming back to Boston.
You know, I mentioned last podcast that he'd only had a couple of like Luca typical level offensive performances in a Lakers uniform. Had another one that night, and at least early on, he's in the process of putting together another one. The guy's got his legs under him, and he's pretty damn good when he's got his legs under him.
Yeah, I think he made like 12 3-pointers in his first 7 games, or maybe 14 3-pointers in his first 7 games, and he made 11 in his previous 2 coming into tonight.
When he's making his threes, when he's making those step backs, there's just a lot of solutions.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So a couple of weeks ago, we took a look at the teams that we thought were realistic Western Conference contenders, which we defined as, did you make your hotel reservations for the finals? And I have an update that I have made my hotel reservations in Los Angeles. They are cancelable.
Of course you have.
Do you have your hotel reservations in Los Angeles?
No.
I in the spirit of the game, I do. I haven't actually done it. Perhaps I should, although that's kind of Mac-10's turf. So I don't know. They might let me take a final siesta should the Lakers break through. It would break Luca's heart if I'm not covering it, but
sure, he'd be very upset.
We are going to have Hoop Collective podcast. You are not going on vacation early. You are absolutely not going on vacation early. All right. So let's have a discussion about where we've got hotel reservations in the East, although it might be a little bit elementary. It hasn't really changed. Bontemps, have you spoken to your friends at our favorite hotel in Boston? I did it about June 15th of last year.
Yeah, I've had
whenever the finals ended.
Yeah, I've had hotel reservations in Boston since the finals dates came out, whenever that was. I have some hotel reservations in Cleveland out of respect for their season. However, I don't think...
Don't out of respect for their season.
No, listen, I
disrespect Cavs corner.
Listen, the Cavs are the only other team that I think can even be in the conversation with Boston. I think they're pretty clearly, for me, behind the Celtics. And, you know, yes, they've gone 2-2 against the Celtics this year, but I think if you go back to that game last week, like we talked about, the Celtics controlled large stretches of that game without 2 key players playing. And I think if they're playing at the level they're capable of, they're clearly a superior team. So,
well, if you're playing at the level they're capable of, they will win the title.
Well, yeah, that's my point. Like, this is the same debate we've had about the Celtics forever. Is like, are they going to actually do what they're capable of doing, or are they going to play with their food?
Yes, and I'm not.
That's all.
Picking a bone with you. I'm just saying that last year they could get away with.
Correct.
With it, and this year, if they play the Cavs this year, and they mess around, they'll get beat, just like they messed around the other night and they got beat. And that's a reality that I don't think existed.
They will get beat, but they'll definitely be. They'll be much more in trouble against the Cavs than they were against any opponent last year when they cruised through the playoffs.
You know, if they kicked a game last year in any of those series, they were not in trouble of losing. If they kick a game against the Cavs, they could get beat.
The Cavs, who clinched a playoff berth in the first week of March, are over 50 wins.
Yeah,
are going to cruise to the number 1 seed in the
That's
Eastern
right.
Conference are clearly legitimate challengers. We can say that with certainty.
Yeah, I think the Cavs are the only other team that's in the conversation. I just think it's like, I would say it's 4-1 or 4-2. That's all.
Now, I actually do still have reservations in New York, but they're not in the 5% club. Like, let's not kid ourselves. We've seen they've had their chances against Boston and Cleveland recently, just got their doors blown off. I can cancel those. I don't have reservations in Milwaukee, but if a 5% chance merits making a hotel reservation, then I should. The
What
Bucks
is this guy
have
doing, Ryan? What is this guy doing? First of all, he says he should have him in LA, but he doesn't. Now he says he has
I've
him in New
been a
York, but
little
doesn't think
bit
he should. And
busy.
now he says he does it in Milwaukee and he should.
I've been a little bit busy. I haven't had time to fart around on the Marriott. Okay, my God. Shout out to Marriott.
Well, I will say this. So the Cavs are, as we record this, the hottest team in the league. They've won 12 in a row. Their third different 12-game winning streak. Having said that, the last 3 wins are by the skin of their teeth, and were look, a win's a win.
That's right. Wins are wins.
Wins a win. I remember when I covered the Cavs team, the LeBron's first truly dominant regular season team was in 2009-10. No, in 2008-9.
8-9 when they won 66.
66 and 16. And I remember covering that team, and it felt like every close game, every game that they could have was 50-50. I felt like they won them all. And that is exactly what's happening with this Cavs team. Yes, they are blowing the doors off of teams, no doubt at times. Their net rating is, during this win streak, their net rating is over 15. I think it's like 16 or 17. So they're not leaving doubt. Having said that, during this stretch and repeatedly during this season, there have been games where they were not necessarily deserving of the victory and they got it. For example, on Wednesday night, they were up by 3 and they kind of botched the coverage on an inbounds play, and Duncan Robinson from the Heat hit a 3 to tie the game, except for he put his heel on the sideline, and he was out of bounds. It was not questionable, but it was by an inch, and the Cavs, dodged potential overtime for that. And so the hottest team in the league is the Cavs. After that, over the last 9 games, the second hottest team is the Bucks, and they've won 8 out of 9. It coincides with Giannis coming back from the calf injury. And in that stretch, and it sounds like a broken record, because when we talk about hot teams on the podcast, whoever it is, whether it's the Blazers were hot recently.
Yeah.
The Pistons were really, they're still doing well, but their Pistons were really hot. I know it's boring, but you look at one thing, and the one thing always tells a story. Guess who the number 1 defensive team is in the league over the last 9 games?
There you go.
The Milwaukee Bucks. Guess who the number 2 defensive team is over that same span?
Cleveland.
The Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, Lakers.
Guess
Sorry,
who
Lakers
the number 3 defensive team is in that span? Cleveland. Guess who the number 4 team is in that span defensively? Warriors.
Warriors.
Did the Warriors were in trouble tonight? I didn't see.
Oh, they
it.
won.
Okay.
Both teams accomplished their goals in that game.
All right.
Warriors against the Nets.
So the point is, you can fill it up, and you can buy some wins by getting hot from 3, but the way to win in the NBA is to freaking defend. So the Bucks are doing that despite Bobby Portis dealing with that suspension and making him more thin on the front line. I will say that as you talk about Milwaukee's streak here, they do have the hardest remaining schedule of all the Eastern Conference teams. I'm not sure they're going to get higher than 4, but
they don't want to get higher than 4.
That's true. That's true. They do have a game against Cleveland Sunday night. We talked about that the other day. It is on ESPN. So Yeah, the Cavs are 3-0 against the Bucks this year, but as you talked about Bontemps, the Bucks were in a different place, and I don't think Giannis was healthy for all the games. But so Milwaukee is rising, and because they have arguably the best player in the Eastern Conference, we can argue that.
That's
I
not
would
arguable.
argue that.
That's not arguable. You're saying somebody's better than Giannis in the East? Who's that?
I thought that's what MacMahon just said.
No, I said it.
Oh.
I would argue that. Like,
Yeah, that's what
absolutely, he is.
Oh, you would argue
Oh.
it? No, we wouldn't argue it.
You just confuse everybody
Who's
for no
on first
reason.
routine. I would argue
Right.
that Giannis is the best player in the East.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
But I don't
good.
think
All right.
it's going to be hard to find somebody to argue against me. How's that?
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So they're gonna have.
I'm saying the same thing, just in the most ridiculous way possible. Okay.
I know. I'm just thinking about like being in like production meetings, and like if that was in First Take, like if you had been in a First Take meeting, and
they would have been so excited for about 10
it would have been like
seconds.
oh,
we
it would
got
have been like a record. It would have been like a record scratch. No, I love those guys.
That's why they don't invite me to those meetings.
No, it's not making fun of them. It's like, we got a debate. And it's like,
No,
wait, no, we have no debate.
I
Everybody
love those
agrees.
I love those guys. Shout out to my guy, Kwaku. All right. So we're not making hotel reservations. Should the Cavs be keeping an eye on what's going on in Milwaukee, Bontemps?
I mean, look, I think the funny thing about where the East standings are is the Celtics right now are basically locked into playing the Knicks in the conference semifinals as it sits right now. I don't think there's a series that would be more picked in one direction than Celtics Knicks if everybody's healthy in the playoffs, because the Knicks have shown absolutely no ability to guard the Celtics at any point this season. I do not think that would be a series that the Celtics would have a lot of trouble. As you said, I think Cleveland's better than Milwaukee. They've shown that over the course of the season. However, if the Bucks are healthy in that series, they have by far the best player in the series. And so you have to give them a puncher's chance in that series. And the Cavs also don't have a great option to guard Damian Lillard either. So they would have some real opportunity with those two guys to really cook in that series. And, Cleveland would have home court advantage. We'd have to see if Milwaukee can actually stay healthy. We haven't seen Giannis get out of the first round healthy the past 2 years. Let's see if this older team can get to the finish line and be healthy and ready to go then. But if they are sitting there, if they get through presumably Indiana in the 4-5 and they're sitting there playing the Cavs in the second round, that is going to be a very challenging series for Cleveland, and it will really show us where this Cavaliers team sits, because, you're going to get tested if you have to go through a healthy and ready to go Giannis to get to Boston in the conference finals.
The thing that about this win streak, it's a little soft. So they beat the Wizards, they beat the Heat. The Heat have really been scuffling. They beat the Mavericks twice. They beat the Hawks. And they play Saturday against the Magic, who suffered a brutal home loss tonight, Thursday night, at home against the Bulls, to fall how many games out of the 10th play-in spot?
Bulls are 4 wins up on Philly and Brooklyn in 10th.
Right. Okay. The Bulls now 4 wins up. Okay. So but Orlando has just.
Yeah, Orlando is nosediving, and now they're looking like they could very well wind up in the 9th spot in the Eastern Conference.
So,
standings.
There was quite a few people, including myself, that thought that Jalen Suggs contract that they gave last fall was a little bit rich. Maybe it was a good deal because they haven't been able to win since Jalen Suggs got hurt.
So I want to go back to the Bucks, though, Wendy. Are they in your 5% club? 5% chance to make the finals? Give the Celtics 60, the Cavs 35. Can they get the other 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they can.
But here's the thing. You mentioned Giannis, best player in the East. They will have the best player in any series in the Eastern Conference playoffs. They'll have the best player in any series up until the finals. And I think any team that comes out of the finals is going to have a player who certainly would have a case for being the best player, whether that would be Shea, Joker, or Luka. But in the East, I don't think there's going to be an argument in any series. And since that 2-8 miserable start in Milwaukee, the Bucks are 34-17. Now, it's not, they don't have like an overwhelming point differential. They haven't been dominant, but it's not just that they've gotten hot. They've been good for the vast majority of the season, very good for the vast majority of the season. Just got off to a terrible start. And during that stretch, when Giannis is on the floor, they're 28-12. So, when you've got Giannis and one of the best clutch shot makers in recent NBA history, then I think you're at least going to have a chance um, in a playoff series against pretty much anybody. So that's why I'd put them in the 5% club.
Bontemps, what do you think about that?
I
5%?
mean, look, I would not give them. I don't think they're getting out of the East. I wouldn't put them in the 5%. I think if they play Boston, Celtics have multiple defenders to go at Damian Lillard, probably arguably the two best guys in the league to guard him, in Drew Holiday and Derek White. They would have some trouble with Giannis, obviously, but they don't. The Bucks don't have, I think, the ability to really handle the Celtics. They don't have anybody to guard basically any of their perimeter players. I don't like the matchup for them. I do, though, think they match up pretty well, if healthy, with the Cavs. And while I would give the slight edge to the Cavs because the Cavs are much deeper and they've got the two bigs to throw at Giannis, and I think, there's a decent chance, unfortunately, with the age of those guys, that somebody's going to break down. Giannis he is a force. And the last time we saw him fully healthy in a playoff series in the Eastern Conference was in the second round of the playoffs in 2022-23 against the Celtics, or 21-22, I should say. And over 7 games, this is what he averaged: 34 points, 14 and a half rebounds, 7 assists, a steal and a block. And without Chris Middleton, had them in a game 7 on the road against the Celtics, who had a way superior team.
I mean, they had a game 6 at home to clinch.
But I'm just saying that series went the distance with Chris Middleton, the second or third best player on the team, depending on where you put him with Drew Holiday, not playing 1 second. And the Celtics were healthy. So
yeah, wasn't game 7 the Grant Williams game?
Yes, Grant Williams hit a million shots in that game.
Yeah.
But Giannis has the ability to do special stuff. And, like I said, it would be a huge test for the Cavs if that's the second round matchup. And I think we'd learn a lot about them if they're healthy and we see over that series. But I don't give them a good enough chance to get out of the East, though.
Let's not just dismiss Damian Lillard. This is a guy who has had multiple walk-off series-ending shots. One in Chandler Parsons' face, last game of Parsons' time in Houston, and one in Paul George's face from, suburban Portland. That was the end of that era of the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, I'm just saying, the guy, like, they are the highest scoring duo is Giannis. I asked Giannis something about like their improved chemistry, him and Dame this season. And he did one of those. I really enjoy Giannis, but he does have a flair for the disingenuous. He said, I haven't been paying attention to the NBA as much as I probably should, but are we the highest scoring duo in the league? Something along those lines. Oh yeah, geez, Giannis. Well, gee whiz, you sure are. What a coincidence that you figured you might be. But hey, but they are. And those guys are clicking. And Wendy, as you said, they're, as a team, are playing great defense, which I understand the limitations with Dame at the point of attack and all that defensively. But when you've got Brook Lopez and you've got Giannis, you should be able to construct a pretty solid defense. And
if you look at them, now that they have Kuzma, right? Not that I'm the biggest Kuzma fan, but if you're playing him at the 3 and then you're playing Giannis and you're playing Brook, it sort of goes back to what the Nuggets did as you talked about that whole playoff run, Brian, when they had Porter and Jokic and Aaron Gordon out there. If you just have size all over the place, you can sort of make up for deficiencies by just being in the way. And, they're throwing Andre Jackson out there. Some of these, Gary Trent, these like 6'7", long, athletic 2 guards. Like, they just got a lot of size out there around Dame. And, we'll see how that looks in a playoff series. Again, if they're trying to guard Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they're going to have a lot of trouble. Like they don't have a good matchup for that either. So like that would be a really interesting series. And again, like they take out a healthy Giannis, like that's a real feather in your cap. And then you go into that Celtics series feeling even better about the Cavs than we do right now when they're having this tremendous regular season.
Well, a couple of things about them recently. One, since Giannis came off of this calf injury, they've been careful with his minutes. He's playing under 30 minutes a game. So assuming that he stays healthy and gets healthier, they're playing really well despite holding his minutes down. The second thing is they look to have, there's been a lot of the trade deadline has proved very meaningful. Obviously, by the way, the Lakers pretty much didn't score since the last time we mentioned them, and now the Knicks are ahead by 10 at the half. But anyway, obviously Luka, Jimmy Butler, DeAndre Hunter with the Cavs, who now, by the way, after 10 games, the Cavs are 10-0 with him, and he's plus 97 in those 10 games on the court. He had another good game against the Heat. But I will point out Kevin Porter Jr., which was one of those deals.
Kevin Porter Jr. ain't going to be doing a damn thing in the playoffs.
Well, first off,
say that right now. You just that ain't that we can't be coming here with like, hey, we got Kevin Porter Jr. playing minutes right now. Like, come on.
The guy's a decent little bench bucket getter.
Come on.
Well, I'm talking about the acquisition at the trade deadline. I mean, he had a triple double. I mean, again, it was against Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. But the last 6 wins for the Bucks, since we're doing zeroing in on this stretch of the schedule. Did you go through it?
I said two with Dallas, Atlanta,
Washington, Miami, who's been dreadful.
Yeah, I said
one good win against Denver.
Yes, it was a very good win.
Yes,
and I told you they got a tough schedule. But I'm not. I'm not arguing that Kevin Porter is going to lead him to the promised land. I'm just saying it's been a nice pickup. He's shooting 50%. He's that's what we do on this podcast. We point out little things that maybe wouldn't get noticed elsewhere.
Okay.
I'm going with 5%. I'll give him 5% out of Giannis respect.
I got Wendy's vote.
Yeah.
Giannis alone probably deserves 5%, but that's not the question was, do I have a hotel reservation in Milwaukee? And I don't think you should have one.
Then I asked a different question. All right. We can answer multiple questions on one.
They have some nice hotels that they built near the arena.
Yeah.
It's a nice district.
Giannis alone deserves the 5%. He's good enough.
That's what I was saying. Thank you for coming around.
I think the last time I've been to Milwaukee, I don't get East that often, even though it's not necessarily East, but I don't get Eastern Conference all that often. I think the last time I went to Milwaukee might have been with James Harden's Houston Rockets when I was chit-chatting with a promising young Chicago-based beat writer named Malika Andrews.
Whatever happened to her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Giannis had a 50-piece in a finals clinching game, so that alone should be
one of the great games and one of the great single game performances in NBA history.
Yeah, that alone should give him the respect to be in that group. But Bucks remain pretty flawed.
The idea of having to win 8 times against the Cavs and Celtics is a tall order. They could put some scare into them, but we'll see. That game on Sunday night won't be the be all end all.
That's going to be a really interesting test because the Bucks played the night before. I kind of hope they sit some guys in this Orlando game because I would really like to see them go toe to toe with the Cavs and have everybody available and see what it looks like. Because, like you said, they played 3 times in the first couple weeks of the season. I think Dame missed one of the games and Giannis missed one of the games. And, I just would like to see, especially after all these moves, what it looks like over 48. I think that would be a really interesting test for both sides going into what is a likely, well, I shouldn't say likely. We'll see what happens with Indiana, though they had a tough loss today to Atlanta. But certainly would be a fascinating series if the Bucks are healthy in the second round against them.
No Halliburton tonight, and Halliburton has been hooping.
He has been balling. That's been very fun to see after him struggling earlier in the year. He's been dominant for a while.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the East.
So tonight we saw I was sitting here at this dreadful game, watching the end of this Bulls.
Tatum had a
Magic
nice
game.
night.
Well, Tatum was great. I mean, the Celtics cruised in the game. Rookie Baylor Shireman, first round pick, had his first real
Creighton.
NBA moment today. So that
Oh,
was
Baylor.
the
A couple weeks ago, I went to a pro volleyball during the All-Star break. I went to a pro volleyball game,
Okay.
and Baylor Shireman was there,
Indoor?
indoor.
Okay.
Baylor Shireman attended the game.
All right.
His girlfriend is a pro volleyball player.
Ah.
volleyball or hoops bigger in Omaha, Brian.
Creighton hoops, but volleyball is very big.
Oh,
Also,
Lincoln,
I should point out the
Lincoln volleyball is
University
probably
of
bigger though, right?
what's that?
And Lincoln volleyball is probably bigger.
And basketball?
Yeah.
I bet it is. I would argue that.
Didn't they sell out the football stadium?
They did. Yeah, they did. They have a volleyball only arena, and I'm not talking about.
No, volleyball is bigger than basketball in Nebraska for sure. That's why I asked in Omaha, because Creighton is very big in Omaha, but
They have a volleyball only arena at the University of Nebraska, and it's not like some 1,500 seat venue. I'm talking about like 10,000, 8 or 10,000 seat venue with suites and jumbotrons and all this stuff. And they sold out every game for years.
that says all you need to know.
Yes. By the way, the University of Nebraska Omaha, the Mavericks, had a great year. I attended their clinching game for the Summit League regular season crown last weekend.
Toes on the hardwood?
Toes were on the hardwood, actually.
It's not a toes joke. It's not a toes joke. I'm just asking what you were saying.
Yes, the toes were on the hardwood. Thank you to the UNO Mavericks. By the way, an interesting side note, since we talk about the NBA, the UNO Mavericks logo is a bull, whereas the Dallas Mavericks logo is a horse. We could dig into that, but we won't.
Well, that's a bull.
Yeah. No lottery picks in that game, unfortunately. But
you didn't make any discoveries? Usually on your scouting trips, you'll come back with like a generational 7-footer or something.
There is a 7'3" guy who played for Oral Roberts, who I saw, who's Sudanese, who is still very much learning the game, and probably was the only NBA prospect. I don't know. I mean, last year I went to a game in Omaha. I went to an NCAA tournament game. Was not impressed on an NBA level with anybody in the game, and the guy who was going to finish top 3 rookie of the year was playing in the game.
Who?
Jalen Wells.
Wow, shows what you know. You can only scout the big guys.
Well, so I'm saying, like, that was a game where, for all what you made fun of me, I could have walked away going, boy, there's this kid at Washington State who's like, looks like a real potential player.
Well, in your defense, you ain't the only one who missed on him. Didn't he transfer in from Sonoma State and then slipped into the second round? So,
yeah. So anyway, I for all I know, there's a guy who's going to be knocking on the rookie of the year door next year from that game that I didn't catch with my eye. Anyway, so Bontemps, the lottery picture is thus. Since we last discussed it, the Toronto Raptors have won 2 games, which should very, very, very closely have the eyes of the Philadelphia 76ers that you were with tonight. Because now the difference between the number 5 and number 7, 5 and number 6 spots is now just 1 game, where Philly is tied for 6th. And the difference between being 5th, which is where Toronto is now, and the difference between being 7th, which is where Philly will keep their pick, is a humongous swing in percentages for the 76ers about whether they keep their pick or not.
Well, and by the way, by our projections right now, the Sixers are projected to finish with the 5th worst record and be 3 wins shy of Toronto, which I think is, if I'm looking at it, I think is the accurate way this is going to go, in part because the Raptors down the stretch have by far the easiest schedule left in the league. And their guys are healthy, and they're going to have like they've barely played Emmanuel Quickly and Scotty Barnes together at all. Like in the game they beat Orlando in, they tried to sit their guys in the fourth quarter and they won anyway. But like they're going to have to play these guys in some of these games down the stretch, and like, Philadelphia's already got half their roster out.
And they get to play the Sixers twice too.
Philly's got a pretty soft schedule themselves.
They do. They're sixth. They have the sixth softest, but these guys are not in position to win a lot of games.
Philly's got
I'm just going to say,
and a trip to Dallas that doesn't, so it's even a little softer than.
Well, I know, but let's see who's playing in the game in Dallas.
Here are the Raptors' next 5 games.
For that one.
As they're coming off of sweeping the Orlando Magic in a baseball series in Orlando. Okay, to talk about where the Magic are.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the upcoming week or so for the Raptors. Utah at home. Baseball series.
Dude,
baseball
did you
series.
See Utah's lineup against the Wizards. Go on. It was not worth mentioning, but go on.
Well,
somebody is coaching a lot.
The funny thing about that game,
put it that way,
with all due respect to our guy Craig Boulderjack, who's the play-by-play guy for the Jazz it was like a 5-point. I mean, it was a 6-point game with like 25 seconds left, and they tossed in a 3 to like make it a 1-possession game. And Craig was kind of like, I was watching him call it, and he was kind of like, he was like telling a story. Like he was doing anything to try to make sure that there was no excitement about the Jazz potentially winning the game. It was like he was trying to will the loss. Because it was a close game. I turned it on. And so anyway, okay, they play the Jazz. The Raptors host the Jazz. Then they host the Wizards for 2. Then they go to Utah.
And you missed the game against the Sixers that they have in there too.
Oh, that's right. Jazz, Wizards, Sixers, all at home, and then they go to Utah. That's their.
In all seriousness, they might be locked into the 7 by the end of next week, because if they win those games, which they're going to have to actively try to lose all those games, hard. Well, and if they win those games, if their guys play and they win, they could end up in the play-in. They could end up in 10th. I mean, they'll be catching up to the Bulls quick. I mean, the incredible stat, I think the Bulls are now 3-9 in their last 12 games and have gained ground in terms of holding on to the 10 seed.
My God.
And that's what we're talking about here.
Oh boy.
Like Toronto is definitely the best of those teams right now. It's just a matter of how committed are they going to be to trying to stay as low in the standings. And honestly, I don't think they can really do a lot more than they have been, because they have to see what some of these guys look like playing together. They traded for Emmanuel Quickly more than a year ago, and they've him and Scotty Barnes, I think, have played 35 games together or so. They got to get some minutes together in a court. So, it's going to be interesting to watch how it goes, because they're now tied in the win column with Brooklyn and Philly, and the Pelicans, who lost tonight but have won a few games recently, are only 3 or 4 back. It's going to be a interesting little race down the stretch here for those 5, 6, 7, 8 spots.
I want to talk about how great Zion's been looking, and then he had a dud tonight, so we'll table that discussion for better. But
that's the other thing that's a factor here too, is the Pelicans finally have Zion out there healthy and playing, and I think he's
on a tight minutes restriction though, sitting back.
Listen, I'm just saying, if he is healthy and playing down the stretch of the season, if he's playing 28 minutes a game, he can win them a few games.
Or they can be very, very strict with the minutes restriction and have a game the other night in LA where Zion looked absolutely spectacular. I mean, the dude had 37 points in 26 minutes. Was plus 13, and they lost by 21.
Can I tell you something about that game?
So they can overcome Zion's brilliance, but yes, you can win.
Well, I mean, the Lakers are also as high as any team.
Tell us something, Bontemps.
I was about to say, Brian, what's your point? But
he's the cartoon on the podcast. He can talk.
Zion in that game the other night, where he had 37, he made 17 baskets in the paint.
And he didn't attempt any threes. Him and Giannis, while this whole league is about expanding range and threes, those guys are downhill as much as they have ever been and are putting up massive scoring numbers. Zion scoring numbers, you got to really look at like points per minute because of the minutes restriction and all that. But those guys,
Yeah, I mean, 17. I mean, that's Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain stuff.
Well, it's
17
also
baskets in the paint.
it's also a reminder, like we've talked about with the Lakers, for as good as their defense has been, and they've really been jamming the paint, forcing teams to shoot threes. In the first half tonight, the Knicks took 24 threes. They take, I think, 33 or 34 a game. There isn't a rim protector on
Yeah.
the Lakers, as we've talked about, right? So, like, if
Yes,
you went into a
but-
game playing against Zion Williamson, hold on, I'm just saying, if you go into a game with Zion Williamson, it stands to reason, like, if he's feeling good, he should be able to wreck things in the paint, which he did in that game.
That's true. But the Lakers absorbed it because they put up 140 that night because Luka and LeBron are now going.
Sure. They all put up
135.
140 because the
You don't have
Pelicans
to
stink.
exaggerate.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
The Lakers are good too, but yes.
No, the Lakers are playing great. I just got done saying that. But like the Pelican, we're talking about a team that's like 17 and 45 for a reason. That's all.
I love how the USWB is so good at like just putting a thin slice of praise in a crap sandwich.
We're talking about him putting a $140 on a Pelicans team that's 17 and 45. That's all. That's all I was saying. I don't think that's a criticism to just point out the team isn't good.
I love it.
Anyway, we talked the other day. I think we have to keep an eye on the Houston, Brooklyn. We talked the other day about how it's possible that Phoenix might deliver a higher pick.
Yes.
Than they traded away with Brooklyn. So Brooklyn right now has the tied for sixth highest lottery odds. They're sixth place. Phoenix, having gotten a win, is 12th.
Yeah.
So,
now I think Bontemps pointed out the other day, and I'm looking at Tankathon's remaining schedule strength. Phoenix is the toughest by a decent cushion. Strength of schedule this is average winning percentage is 593. Now that does include Sunday in Dallas, so it's a little bit inflated, but it's the toughest by 4+ percentage points.
By our system, they're second only to the Lakers in remaining strength of schedule.
There you go. So Phoenix, they got a tough road ahead. Who knows though? Maybe that game against the Clippers where it's a miserable first 3 quarters and somehow, some way, the Suns get it together for the final quarter and rally from down to win. I'm just saying maybe that's going to be symbolic of their season. Who knows?
Could be. I was talking about
not letting go of the rope apparently in Phoenix.
Yeah, I was talking about them jumping up in the lottery, not finishing like lower record wise because they're not going to be that bad. But
of course,
yeah.
You're talking about the Suns having quote unquote lottery luck and the top 4.
Yeah.
All right. Well, a team that is struggling and moving down in the standings is the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis has lost 7 of the last 9 games. They got handled by the Thunder on Wednesday night. Shea put up a cool 41. And they, it kind of got lost because the Kyrie injury happened Monday night. But also that night, Jaren Jackson Jr. hard turned over his left ankle. I think it was his left ankle. And they came up with a grade 2 sprain diagnosis, which is, it's different for everybody, but it's a multi-week injury. And
they officially are considering him week to week.
Yeah, I got one of those after they were healthy for about 15 minutes. I got one of those Memphis Grizzlies medical updates in my email inbox. Ja has missed a few games recently with a sore shoulder, and he's feeling the effects because already by his standards, his scoring is a little bit down partially because the Grizzlies are running a more balanced offensive attack.
Primarily because he's had a really poor shooting season.
Well, even by his poor season, his last 8 games, which aren't consecutive, he's missed some games in there because of this shoulder injury, but his shooting stats in the last 8 games are thus: 36% from the field, 16% on threes.
I mean, since the break, it's 6 games and it's 14.6% from
Oh,
3
God.
points. Even it's 28.4, 43 from the floor, 28.4 from 3-point range. And I mean, it's been for as well as the Grizzlies have played, it's been a tough season for John Morant. Obviously, coming back off last year when he missed almost all of the year, first with the suspension, then with the shoulder injuries, deal with his shooting shoulder now. And this is the worst field goal percentage of his career. And, aside from last season, which was just 9 games, it's the worst 3-point percentage of his career. And he's averaging his fewest points since his second season. Now, and again, they have been a very good offensive team this season. Their offensive system has really worked. Jaren Jackson Jr. is having his best offensive season.
Yeah.
But scoring career high and doing it in efficient fashion. They're a deep team, but like when you talk about the ceiling for the Grizzlies, they've got to have John Morant playing at a superstar level, and he really hasn't this season, and he's really struggling now. And after Oklahoma City beat them in Memphis, it was an interesting post-game media session, and where Ja basically said, "Hey, man, like this shoulder is not right." It talked about how much he was struggling with the shoulder injury. Said he shouldn't have played in that game. Said they asked him if it's something he's going to have to deal with for the rest of the season. He says, "I don't know." Now that was minutes after Taylor Jenkins was discussing or was asked about Ja's shooting slump, and he says, "I want him to work through this. He'll be working through this Friday night in Dallas because he's not on the injury report." So, take that for what you will. He's dealing with shoulder soreness. How much that's affecting his shot, you have to imagine some. The numbers aren't pretty, and they really need him now because Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to miss some time here.
I want to point out, Jaren Jackson's played 59 games.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
He needs 6 more to make sure, he's got a strong case for all NBA.
Oh, very strong case.
I mean, he will make all NBA if he is eligible. The question is, will he get the 6 games in?
Yeah.
So week to week, there's 5 weeks left in the season, 6, 5 and a half.
He misses 10 games if he misses 2 weeks, I think. I was looking at it. Or, it's like 8, I should say 8 games. So he's like halfway there in 2 weeks. So,
Well, anyway, the reason it's relevant isn't just for all NBA. If he makes all NBA, becomes Supermax eligible, which makes him more likely to be able to sign an extension this summer.
And actually, so there's a couple things here. First of all, he got hurt 2 minutes into the game the other day. The game doesn't count. So he's down a game. So that's the first thing. Now, if he ends up at 64 games, they might count that one because he got hurt in it.
I would agree.
But still, it's another complicating factor. On top of that, he can sign an extension this summer. They did get rid of Marcus Smart to give them, in part, the flexibility to sign him to an extension. But if he makes Supermax or wins Defensive Player of the Year, which he also probably isn't winning now that he got hurt, it does give them a lot more flexibility to sort of figure out whatever they want to do the following year and start that extension off, as opposed to having to renegotiate and extend them, which leads to a lot of complications. So it's doable, but the Grizzlies would be very happy if he made All NBA, because that would mean he's both back healthy and on the court and ready to go for the playoffs. Because they're going to need him ready for what seems like it certainly is a good chance of being a first round series with the Rockets. But yeah, I mean, it's a significant injury on a few fronts, from both the health standpoint of Jaren and for the financial future of the Grizzlies. By the way, just because they're in this battle with the Rockets, the next chunk of games for the Rockets, home for New Orleans, home for Orlando, home for Phoenix, home for Dallas, home for Chicago, home for Philly, at Orlando, at Miami. Then they play they're home for Denver, and then home for Atlanta, and at Utah, and at Phoenix. That could be a whole lot of wins in a row for the Rockets, who could use
I was checking text. I tend to tune out Bontemps. Did you mention on his extension why, if he's not Supermax eligible, it's much, much, much less likely?
Well, they'd have to renegotiate and extend it because his salary is so low next year.
Right.
But if that's what you were referring to, yes.
Yeah. So sometimes teams when a player is on the edge of getting to Supermax eligibility, the team will quietly, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if they missed out. It would save us a lot of money. It behooves, in a way, it kind of behooves the Grizzlies because it opens up the possibility of being able to extend him, more likely to extend him. I doubt he's getting the actual Supermax, but
no, but even if it's a slice of it, or like you can they would certainly like to be in a position to negotiate what the dollar figure would be, as opposed to being handcuffed to offer him an extension that wouldn't make sense. And give me I forget the exact percentage that you can put on a
well, it doesn't really matter because his salary goes down. It's only at 23 million next season. They couldn't give him an extension that he would take just giving a raise off it. So they have to give him more money next year and then do an extension off it, which they would be able to do because the moves they did earlier, like we talked about. But the bottom line is they would love for him to make All-NBA, because then it would pretty much guarantee he's going to be on the team going forward, because they wouldn't have to worry about any of that. They could just sign him to a big extension starting the following year and get it done. They could still renegotiate an extension if they want to, but it gives them all the flexibility in the world, as opposed to the other way where they've got to jump through a whole bunch of hoops to do it.
Yeah.
By the way, could I return to Cavs Corner for a moment here?
Oh, you always can. You're always welcome in Cavs Corner.
Thank you kindly. Thank you. Evan Mobley ought to be, and the Cavs ought to be watching what happens too, because Evan Mobley is a contender for All-NBA.
I mean, Evan Mobley's making All-NBA.
And he's getting the year.
Yeah.
He might be double.
Once again, Bontemps blasts over the top, and for Defensive Player of the Year, which if he gets that, he can be, he can get 50 million.
Just got to make sure you.
Can I just say about Defensive Player of the Year that it's alarming. It's surprising. You guys know how I feel about Dyson Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
It is alarming that he is not getting as much consideration as I think he should.
Speaking of the Grizzlies' recent struggles, Dyson Daniels made one of the. I mean, he's got a chance to be a cojones factor candidate based off the defensive stop that he had. Bane had 35, 10 and 10, 35-point triple-double. I believe first triple-double of his career. And he's driving. The Great Barrier Thief picked him clean and threw about 65, 70-foot dart to Karis LeVert, who did a little Euro and
at the buzzer.
Layup at the buzzer. I mean, It was one of the most amazing defensive plays into a dime that you will ever see to win a game.
It was a game-winning steal in the front court.
And he had another unbelievable game-sealing steal.
I mean, he's had an incredible defensive year. I mean, him and Toumani Camara are in the same boat. They both have had great years. They both put up a ton of defensive stats. They're both excellent defensive players. Their teams are ranked 20th and 21st in defensive rating, and they're perimeter players. So they're not going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but they should both 100% be all defensive team players, and they've had phenomenal seasons.
Let me give you talk about defensive stats with Dyson Daniels. He leads the league with 340. Well, they played tonight, so this is a one game behind, but he leads the league with 344 deflections. Okay. Second place is Kelly Oubre.
That's surprising.
He's got 120 less.
Oh. And the steals is like similarly.
He's basically got Dyson Daniels got basically 50% more deflections than the guy in second place. By the way, just because I'm looking at the stats, so that's deflection totals. That's total deflections. Mm-hmm. If I gave you guys 100 guesses I don't think you would guess who is second in deflections per 36 minutes. So obviously the hint would be this guy doesn't play that much, but I might give you 200 guesses and you wouldn't get it.
I have no clue.
No, it's not. I'm just, don't even bother.
Who is it?
Reed Shepherd.
Oh, sure.
Oh, right. He's played 36.
I mean, that doesn't, I mean, if you Reed had massive, I mean, the machine Kevin Pelton was here with me at the game tonight. The Sloan Analytics Conference is here this weekend.
Right.
Reed actually, it doesn't shock me only because he was an incredible model player because he got a ton of steals and deflections and stuff at Kentucky. So if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I never would have, I mean, he's barely played. He had a big 25-point game the other night against the Thunder, but
I know. I'm denoting it.
Yeah, for sure.
Denoting it.
Steals. Dyson Daniels leads the league with 173. Second on the list, SGA with 112. Chris Dunn is the only other player in the league with 100.
Yeah, there's no other player averaging at least 2 steals a game. SGA is at 1.8 a game, as is Chris Dunn. Dyson Daniels is at 3 a game. I mean, he's having a hell of a year, but he's not up there with Evan Mobley and with Jaren. And Jaren will probably fall off a little bit. Like, I think Mobley's probably the very clear front runner to win the award now after this Jaren injury and obviously after Victor going out for
the Australian NBA fan contingent is begging for Dyson Daniels to get more attention for Defensive Player of the Year. And because I have talked about him throughout the season, I mean, now it's ubiquitous, but
another discovery, MacMahon.
Yes, nobody. No, I mean, he was a lottery pick. Nobody knew about him before this year.
If you what?
What?
You what? Ubiquitous?
Ubiquitous.
What's that mean?
It's ubiquitous.
I really don't know what that means.
His name is all over the place. That's what it means.
It means that he's gotten a lot of attention for his steals.
Yes.
Why don't you say that?
He's not going to win. He's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but he's had a great season.
I know the Australians are very upset that people like you, voters like you, are dismissing him.
He's had a tremendous year. He's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year.
All right, maybe we'll get him on the podcast and he can argue his case for Defensive Player of the Year. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to Saturday night, Bontemps. We may have to have a podcast with you and Mc10, Mc2 seed. What about that? What about that, MacMahon?
Seed. Yes.
Mc2
seed. Yeah, you do that because it's the IT department's birthday weekend and we've got some dinner reservations for.
I got to get this photo that I was sent, which is Dave at the Laker game. Oh, I can't say
Larry David.
Here's the thing. Okay. You have to understand.
Is that Dave and his guy, Larry David? Is that who it is?
You have to understand that Dave's hero is Larry David.
Dave's name is actually, David is his middle name. It's Larry David McMenamin.
So
our guy Mac-10 is a huge Curb fan. Huge.
And I hope I'm not stealing his thunder in some way here, but this photo, which I should have, I'll send to Jackson and he can put it on the YouTube feed. It's Larry David sitting in the front row of the Laker game and Dave chatting with him. And Larry David, it looks like it would have come right out of Curb Your Enthusiasm because Larry dresses the exact same as his character, and
all the time.
It's like it could be like all you need is the theme music over the top, and God only knows what Mc10 was talking to him about.
One of the funniest nights of my entire life was at a Yankee game. I was sitting at a Yankee game and I was sitting near Larry David and there were not many people there. So we ended up chatting with him because there were a couple seats over, and a fan, like this was straight out of a Curbed show. A crazy fan came up to him with a Seinfeld script. And he was just like, he had like,
but the Seinfeld show has been over for a decade.
Trust me, I know. And it was like, can you look at this? And he was like, no. Like couldn't try to get away fast enough. The whole thing was beyond awkward. It was like straight out of the show, and it was just like,
I'm about to stop you there.
The funniest thing of all time.
It was on paper, or was like on his phone.
I think he had it like, I think it's some kind of manila envelope, like on sheets of paper. I mean, this was 10 years ago, but
How did he acquire the printout?
or he came up to him and said, I have a script. Can you look at it? What I remember is he sat there and accosted Larry David and was like, I have a script. Can you look at it?
And now
Larry
it's our
David
guy
was like-
McTen accosting Larry David.
Well, just
Okay.
it
Which
was
conversation-
an amazing.
He had a Seinfeld script, or he had a Curb Your Enthusiasm.
He was asking about a Seinfeld script.
Wow.
Let me ask this. Maybe we could do multiple choice on this. Which conversation do you think Larry David enjoyed the least? Seinfeld script guy, the USWB, or MacTusi?
I can promise you it was the Seinfeld script guy, because I
Not
didn't
who
bother
I'd
him that
pick.
much, because I'm a huge Seinfeld fan too, and I just chatted with him a little bit, and then he's a big sports fan. He was having fun watching the game, and I'm sure he had a good time chatting with Dave. He did not want to talk to this other dude. He couldn't get away fast enough.
But it's possible, McMahon, that McTuseed was number one on that list. Because I got to tell you, I'm looking at the video here, and he looks pretty content talking to Dave. I'm
I
not
don't know.
going
It
to lie.
looks to me like he's leaning back trying to.
You're reading the body language.
That guy.
There's a lean back. I can tell the gaze. It's like he's looking, people kind of, they're looking for an escape route. Like, okay, is there somebody I know over here? Oh, hey.
I didn't know that happened tonight, but that's a very cool thing for our guy, because he is as big a Larry David fan as there exists on the planet. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a funny thing. Like, we were joking about Jadakiss the other day, but like, sometimes these hip hop stars, like, because they're NBA fans, will come up and talk to me.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'll never,
You're a big deal.
like,
Sometimes,
you guys know,
sometimes, man, sometimes.
like I remember, like, during the finals in Cleveland when I was talking to 2 Chainz, like
2 Chainz, baby.
outside the locker
I
room,
remember. I remember it.
and like all these players walking past, like double taking, like, what the hell? What about you, McMahon? You got some country music guy down in Dallas or something?
I mean, it's Chris Jenner at the building formerly known as Staples Center. My girl. Come on now.
Chris Jenner or
My
Khloe
girl?
Kardashian?
Chris Jenner, dude, this is a Hoop Collective thing. Remember?
I
we
don't remember
showed
this
the
story.
selfie
I
late
guess
at
that
night.
with her?
No, I mean, like, I know Khloe used to be there all the time when Lamar
That's
Odom
in
was playing.
Dallas. Yeah, that's in Dallas.
Oh,
Yeah, in Dallas, I don't know, man. Maybe saw who did I see? Saw Clayton Kershaw not too long ago. God, I feel old. I covered him in high school. Whenever a dude you covered in high school has gray hair and their beards, it's like, dude, come on now. But he's, that's a pretty big celebrity.
Bontemps, you haven't weighed in yet.
That's a pretty good one. I mean, I shook Bill Clinton's hand at the Barclays Center. I'd say Bill Clinton's pretty high on the list. I had a conversation here at TD Garden with Laura Dern once. That's pretty high on the list, I would say.
Don't know who that is.
She's a famous actress. You would know her if you saw her.
You ever see this little movie called Jurassic Park?
Yes.
I actually never have.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, Jackson just sent us the little YouTube short that, a highly successful YouTube short of my selfie moment with Chris Jenner. I can't believe you guys.
I really don't remember that.
I'm sorry.
I'll have to watch it after.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Bill Clinton is probably the biggest celebrity that I've met at a game. The royal couple was at a Nets game once too. Prince William.
The little royal couple. Yeah, LeBron was chastised for touching the royal couple.
Oh,
which is a no-no. In England at least. Yes, there was a whole.
Yeah, Beyonce used to be at those games all the time.
What about Big Rich, McMahon?
Oh, in OKC, he counts as a celebrity.
Yeah,
they're a little bit thin there.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been Celebrity Talk. Jackson?
One of the biggest celebrities I've ever met is Brian Windhorst.
Well, I did have a nice, the biggest celebrity I've hung out with this week, other than Stephen A., is Dana White, who I met for the first time this week. And we talked about how good for business.
Celebrity Corner continues.
How we talked about how good for business the Luka going to the Lakers was. So
Who's more famous between Dana? I mean, is Dana White not more famous than Stephen A?
I don't think so.
no.
I don't think so.
Well, I got knocked off first take today for Kai Sinet. So, I mean, we're all backseat. We're all in the backseat for him. I'm disappointed I didn't come to All-Star Weekend.
No, you're
I
not.
could have hung out with Mr. Beast. That would have been.
Oh, my kids would think I was really cool then.
My son would too. All right, I think we got to call it at this point, guys.
Oh, we never got Jackson's celebrity moment.
Yeah, I was hoping he would put something in the chat here, but he hasn't. It's probably like some Syracuse
person. Mellow.
Marv Albert or something.
Kevin Hart.
Oh,
That's
Kevin Hart, he says.
Kevin Hart. That's a good one.
Definitely can't ref under my rules.
Oh my God. You better be careful talking your talk to Kevin Hart. He'll take you right down to size.
Well, he'll bite my ankles, that's for sure.
All right. Thank you for watching, listening to the Hoop Collective. Thank you to Jackson, our producer. Thank you to MacMahon. Thank you to Bontemps. We will talk to you in a couple of days after the big Lakers. I got to get I'm going to McTwo seed is going to be on the next pod.
Oh, wait,
we're going to find out about. The best is he'll come on and he'll think that we're going to talk about the Lakers and he's going to get his viewpoints off. I'm going to ask him about Larry David, and I'm like, okay, thanks for coming on, Dave. We'll see you later.
Now you can't say that because he'll be well prepped now. Tell you what though, you talk about a man who can throw some vocabulary words at you, old Mac 2C boy. Let me tell you, that Syracuse education's done him real well.
Yeah, well, he's here's the thing though. I happen to know that Dave recently hung out with Oprah.
Oh my goodness.
So, well, Dave. Let's just guess whether Dave will rank Oprah or Larry David.
There's no debate. There's no debate.
No, I didn't say. Oh, you mean for Dave?
There's no debate.
Yeah. All right.
Larry David's got to go up above just about every life moment that's existed to this point, save for maybe a couple.
That's true.
I was going to say, I hope there was one this summer that ranked higher, but
I said maybe.
Well, I have hyped up this.
Maybe.
I better be able to book Dave on Sunday because I have hyped up this this appearance. All right, thank you for watching. Listen to Hoop Collective. We'll talk to you soon.
Adios, amigos.